Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks provides unique mentoring opportunities to enhance your modeling skills by connecting with talented modelers and manufacturers from around the globe who generously share their knowledge and artistic expertise. Build your confidence, refine modeling techniques, and share your projects with a supportive community of fellow modelers, all while enjoying the world's most rewarding hobby. Join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Zoom and YouTube for our free live program. Missed a program? No problem. Individual show segments are uploaded to YouTube for convenient on-demand viewing. Be sure to connect with the New Tracks community by joining the New Tracks Facebook page, where you can interact with other modelers and see what they are modeling. Visit our website at www.newtracksmodeling.com, where you'll find information about upcoming events and the latest issue of our monthly newsletter, Observations. And now, here is the host of New Tracks Modeling, Tom Farrell.
Good evening and welcome to New Tracks Modeling, coming to you live on Zoom and YouTube, as we do every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're glad you're joining us. This evening, I'm going to mix the show up a little bit. But before we begin tonight's program, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Brennan's Model Railroading.
Tonight's New Tracks Modeling Meetup is sponsored by Brennan's Model Railroading. For over 25 years, Brennan's Model Railroading has been offering unique products focused on the O-scale market. Their flagship product, Brennan's Better Ballast, was an instant hit and continues to be the industry leader. The prototypical size and natural color blend of real crushed granite make it the choice for discerning modelers. Since then, Brennan's has developed a complementary line of natural ground cover materials. Brennan's also has craftsman kits that anyone can build. The complete photographically illustrated instructions assume you've never done this before, and explain in step-by-step detail how to create an outstanding model. The Frank Ellison Tribute series of kits are amazing additions to any layout. These kits take Frank Ellison's scratch-built iconic structures to a new level using modern methods and materials with Dennis Brennan's additional details and amazing instructions. See the complete line of products on the Brennan's Model Railroading website. Use the QR code to visit.
I encourage all our participants and our viewers, both on Zoom and on YouTube, to support our sponsors. We don't have high costs on our program, but we do have some costs, and they have some really interesting products there at Brennan's Model Railroading. Check out their site. Well, next, I want to review the program for this evening. And while Phil's popping that up, I want to remind everybody that everything we offer is free to our participants. We have a team of passionate volunteers that help us out each and every week. And we've got a couple new presenters this evening. But first, at the prompting of one of our longtime participants, we're going to try a open discussion, how we can improve New Tracks Live. I'll host it, and with the assistance of Steve Sherrill as required. We have two N-scale presentations this evening. First time presenter, Doc Lovelace. As many of you know, he's been building the Hellgate Bridge in N-scale, and we've got a fantastic presentation to show where he is with that. And then we've got a building the Conowingo Models Gray Street house in N-scale. And then we have a Bill Davis. I believe he is a first-time presenter here this evening. He's going to be building the O-scale Berkshire Valley Tellhouse kit. And then David Shultz. He's a longtime presenter. Rescue modeling, a term coined by our Steve Sherrill. He's going to take old-time O-scale rolling stock kits and show you what he's done with them. So I want to show you a statistic on our show. Let me put this up here just a moment. Let me share the screen. View. Okay, so as many of you know, I pontificate that I want to grow the show, and I did a little analysis. In 2024, last year, we had an average of 325 views on our YouTube um, reposting. And our average year to date is 352 this year. So we're up about 8.4%. So we're going in the right direction. And if we look at the highest view and the lowest view, the highest show last year received 638 views, and the lowest was 195. This year, the largest we had was 726, and the lowest was 265. So we have about 14% greater views on our most popular segment so far this year. Not segment, these are the shows, because some of the individual segments are much higher, but this is the overall show. My goal is to get each and every show over 1,000 or more. There's no reason it can't be. And we're making progress. All the numbers are positive. I feel like I'm a CEO again presenting to private equity. But everything is positive. But how can we get these numbers, the average higher, and these peak numbers on the highest, how can we push over 1,000? So what I'd like to do is just an open forum this evening, and I've come up with a few questions. And Phil, when I call on somebody, if you could spotlight them.
Yep.
And I'd like to kick off with Bob Gelmacher. And just going to have it is an open forum. So ideally, you can comment on Bob's comments, but some basic questions. And let's just start off with, what do you like about the show? What works for you? You got to unmute yourself.
There we go.
Yep.
I think I like best about the show is when we have people that show you how to do things, specifically in the world of scenery and as far as weathering. And that's a learning process. And I've always enjoyed those type of segments. But what I found, and I'm going to be brutally honest, and if I offend anybody, I'm sorry up front. But that's what this forum ought to be about, is honesty.
Correct.
Most of us catch on to things fairly quickly. So we don't have to have a repetitive board by board by board by board description of how a model is made. I think once somebody shows us once or twice how something is done, that's sufficient, and then move on to the next item. But I really enjoy the information sessions and the how-to sessions.
What do you think about the length and the pace of the program? I mean, one of the things I tried to do was move things along this year and really hold to the 15 minutes. Should that be 10 minutes, 20 minutes? What do you think?
I even think it should be a little bit longer and flexible.
Okay.
One of the problems that I had with the old format that we had was that somebody might be right in the middle of a presentation and all of a sudden we would cut them off, when I think there was still a lot of information there to be had. And in some of the sessions, they really lend themselves to a lot of questions and answers. And I prefer I would rather see fewer sessions or fewer segments that are a little bit longer so that the entire subject can be covered, as compared to a rush through on, more segments per show.
Okay. And you've told us what segments you find most valuable, the scenery and weathering segments.
And just the techniques, the techniques of how one goes about taking different materials and applying those materials, what techniques they use to maybe use those materials in a different way. I know when Martin was on the show and he would go through his builds, I always came away saying, boy, that's a great idea. And I found that with a lot of the other guys that have done builds also.
Are there any modeling skills or topics that we haven't covered or you'd like to see more of that really got your attention, something you really appreciated beyond scenery and weathering? Was there some segment like electronics or
Yeah,
or
I
3D printing or whatever?
my background is in electronics, so I enjoy topics on electronics, topics. I know Phil I think had a segment on Arduinos, or somebody did, but subjects like that, how can we apply technology and automation to our modeling skills?
Great. Well, and I encourage you to jump in, but I'm gonna call on somebody else.
Okay.
Let's try somebody that
Tom,
yeah.
before you leave what he's talking about there,
Yes.
one of the things that he mentioned in there was the having fewer segments. I think one of the things back in the days when Jim was running the show is he tried to put too much in the show.
Yes.
And I'd rather, like he said, I'd rather see 2 or 3 segments with a lot of information in them than to see eight segments with not much.
Yeah. And I'm going to add on to that. It's been about 2 or 3 months ago. I happened on a show that was dedicated to narrow gauge, and they did just that. They only had 2 or 3 people present. Their show was, I think, only about an hour and 15 minutes long, but
Right.
it was really good content.
Right.
And I think the way to get people's interest and to get a lot more people involved is to give them good content, because we all want to learn. So I think content and presentation skills is a key to our success.
One of the things that Steve Sherrill mentioned to me, we had a nearly 2-hour conversation yesterday. One thing that we're not necessarily taking advantage of is we are a live Zoom show, and we're not getting enough interaction. We're not taking advantage of the fact that we are live.
Mhm.
Some of the shows that are really quite successful out there have, several thousand views. Of course, it's a bunch of guys talking to themselves. Maybe it's week to week, it's 3 or 4 guys talking to themselves. Somehow, and we'll see how this goes right now, we need to take advantage of the Zoom format, which means, somebody like Bill Davis, who we hadn't had really on before, is jumping in and talking about things. We need to have more interaction with our Zoom people, and then pick up the comments on the YouTubers. All right, let me throw another question out there.
Tom, before you do that,
Yeah.
I think that we need to extend the opportunity to be on Zoom, even, and I don't know exactly how to do this because it's not my expertise, but we need to notify people, hey, you don't have to be on YouTube. You can come on the Zoom if you see a subject that you like or you want to participate in. Okay. So, those people that are on YouTube right now, if they have a question, it's much easier for them to, if they're on Zoom, to do it directly than to wait for somebody else to, intercede and present the question to whoever the presenter is.
Yeah, good point.
We need to, on the New Tracks site, tell them how to get on the Zoom.
Well, we send out an email blast before each show.
Well, we evidently we're not getting to it.
Well, guys, I also tend to put the Zoom link into the chat in the YouTube every week. In fact, I just did that. So if you are on YouTube and you would like to join us on Zoom, just click on the link in the chat and you can jump onto Zoom.
Yeah, I was wondering how the switchover would work for people who are on YouTube and get to Zoom. So that's cool that you're doing that.
Oh.
So what we're really saying is, let me try somebody else that Looking at the, can't see everybody, but let me try Jeff Thornton. Jeff, you on there? Unmute yourself.
I'm present.
What would you think, Jeff? We want to have, would you be interested in more interactive segments like we're trying to do here? I mean, we'd have a, let's say, it's kind of like Steve Sherrill's model. What do you want to talk about? But we would tell people in advance, like next week, we're going to feature this particular subject. And then we would start the show off with a, people knowing in advance what we're going to talk about, and then trying, I would probably as the host, force participation till we got it rolling, just calling on people. What do you think of that idea?
Well, I think, like you just asked, what would you like to see more of? What scenery, structures, track lane, different things like that. I think, one of the segment host could ask, hey, I'm thinking about presenting on this. Can you let me know? Contact me at my email. And if nobody contacts them, go to something else, because I don't care about Arduinos. I'm not an operations guy, and if he brings up something that nobody really has an interest in, you find something else. But some of the times we've seen repeat segments a lot, but I tell you, we get new viewers all the time. But when you've been watching long enough, you are going to see the same stuff over. But it's good reminders, though. And everybody has a little bit different techniques. Making styrene look like wood. People do it different ways, and some look better than others, and it's great. I love it. But I tell you, it's tough because everybody. I'm come to find out I am more about the structures and the diorama setup. That's the thing. I thought I was a big model railroad, bigger layout type of guy. And between what Boomer has been teaching about doing, breaking your layout into segments, I look at each segment as a diorama. And, looking at Steve's micro layouts and other people's micro layouts, it's just a diorama that happens to include a model train, which I think is wonderful. I mean, look at all the detail your stuff has. I mean, look down the alleys and look at the scenarios playing out. You really don't need a moving train to take a look at your layout. So I think it varies so much, but get out there ahead of time. Hey, we're thinking about do a survey monkey. Hey,
Yeah.
this week we're looking at doing this, and this. What do you think?
We
Survey
can-
Monkey, last time I checked, if you did a couple of questions, it was free. But
we're going to try some questions and surveys next week. Thank you. Kirk, I'm going to call on you. Is there anything that you would like to see, and what do you like about the show?
I can't think of anything offhand. I think over the years you guys have covered quite a bit. I like to see more scenery techniques. Really, I'm not, I'm in the process of taking down a layout. So right now I'm not doing any modeling. But I do like layout scenes. I mean, I know people like dioramas, but the reason I like layout scenes is I try to have these scenes blend in. And I think that's a challenge when you're building a layout. If you're building a diorama, you're focusing on one area, and you can do a lot of detail, which is nice, but it doesn't always fit into the layout. So
What scale do you model?
I model HO scale.
Yeah, we actually need one of the scales that we're remiss on is HO, and I'd like to push the content up of HO and N, seeing that they're the most popular. We get a lot of narrow gaugers. We're doing a lot of stuff. So maybe I can hit you up for a presentation sometime. But
Well, yeah, the only problem is I'm getting ready to sell my house and I'm going to be taking the layout down. So if I do something, I have to do it really quick.
oh, maybe do a quick overview of your layout, just some snapshots before it goes away, you know. But
yeah, I could do that. There's no, I don't have any trains, very few trains on it because I've already packed those away, but the layout is still there.
good. So for you, it would be nice to do more scenery techniques. And we had one several years ago with Bob Gelmacher. He's very good with scenery, and he did one, I recall, from memory. But one thing we haven't done in the last year and a half is scenery. So that's something to note. So thank
Kirk,
you.
I got a question for Kirk. Kirk, you're dismantling your layout. Are you going to take anything with you? And what are you going to do? What are you doing to, I hate to use the term dispose of, but reduce your models that you have? In other words, are you selling them? Are you giving them away?
Or you're setting up a new railroad in your new home?
Tell us how you're doing this, because we're all going to be faced with this situation, especially it's the older guys like me. You know, what are you doing? How are you preparing to do this?
That's a really good question because I've never done this before. But I had to keep in mind when I built the layout that eventually you're going to tear it down. And I wanted to build it so that I can do just that. I didn't want a modular layout because I wanted everything to blend in a little better. But I built it with the idea that you can cut it up in sections and pull it out of there in sections. And one of the things I did was I put a window in my basement where it's wide enough that the layout can go out the window because it won't go around the corners or up the steps.
Mm.
And it's going to be a challenge. I think most of the curved sections I'm going to rip out, throw away, and try to keep the track sections or the yards and the industrial areas in one piece if I can. But they're probably going to be about 8-foot lengths, and storage right now might be an issue. But because I haven't got a home to move to yet, I'm trying to sell my home. I've got a place to move, to stay, but I don't have the storage for it, so I might have to get a storage unit for all that. But
thank you, Kurt. Yeah, I'd like to try another. I'm not familiar with some of these names, and forgive my ignorance, but there's an Eric Kennedy. I don't know if I recognize that name. Eric, are you game to take a few questions? You have to unmute yourself if you're there. Or Mike?
No, he said.
Oh, you said no, or what?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Mike.
Okay.
Dory?
Mike. Okay. Dory.
Mike, you there? I'm just choosing people I'm not necessarily familiar with. Yeah. Well, let's try someone who's very well spoken. Chris Korst.
Oh no.
Who could easily substitute for me at a moment's notice.
Uh-oh. I don't know about that.
What do you like? I mean, for everyone who might be new, because I advertise this for the N scalers. I don't know if we have any new N scalers on this evening, but Chris runs one of the most popular segments on NewTrax Modeling Live, and that's the MyBuild. So just a 2 or 3 sentence intro on what MyBuild is, Chris, and then tell me what you like or dislike, or what would you do to improve the show after you do your little introduction?
All right. Well, as part of MyBuild, what we do is, for those that are not familiar, is we collect photos that everybody has taken, or videos even, of their layouts or whatever they're working on, and maybe take a couple quick minutes, send us those emails or with those pictures, and during the MyBuilds, we go over them, and somebody says, "Hey, this is what I've been working on. Here's a problem I ran into, and here's how I fixed it." Or maybe they don't have a solution and they're looking for one, along those sorts of lines. One of the things we're doing right now is we have the survey up to see what we're going to do for next year, because one of the things that we do is occasionally we'll have challenge shows where we pick a theme, and that's kind of the idea of that is to kind of take and pull people um, out of their normal, comfortable environment and put them in something that's a little bit outside of that comfort zone, and show them different things, and kind of spark some interest and ideas in people that way. In terms of,
What would you like to see? What do you think works, and what would you like to see more of on the show outside of your particular segment?
well, I think having a good solid group of people that does kind of participate, that works. I wish Martin was back here, because everybody was always fascinated by his work. But that's one thing I would try to do, is get Martin back. But
Yeah, I'm going to do that if he's listening. I'm going to hit him up in July after things cool off. But
but
beyond Martin, beyond the answer, we need Martin back. What do you think? What would you like to see going forward? What
yeah,
change would you make?
I would like to see more participants come out of the background. I know we've had a little bit of success, and not to go back to my build, but we'll go back to that for just a second here. We've had some people that have presented some stuff, and then it sparks interest among some people, and whether it was Tom or Jim would say, "Hey, why don't you build something up? Let's talk after the show. Maybe we can come up with a full segment on this." And actually, I know that's happening tonight with Doc Lovelace, and those are the sorts of things that I think that the show does really well on, and I'd like to see more of. I would like to see people go, "Hey, there's something I do very well, and maybe others would benefit from learning it."
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's correct. I think we should leverage the My Build to get bigger presentations out of it, and I think I wanted to segment this or I wanted to budget this time for 30 minutes, and we're about over with that. I know it's going really well, and Cheryl's going to yell at me for breaking off the show.
Hey, Tom, this is Bob. Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
One of the common themes that I've heard, for the last half hour is more participation. But I
Yeah.
think we have to realize that everybody doesn't feel comfortable being a participant. And I've been in situations where we forced people to be participants, and all of a sudden that turned them off so much that they said, "I'm out of here." So
Yeah.
I just think we have to be sensitive to that just because somebody doesn't want to participate, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. I'm just trying to, we've got a couple new participants this evening. It's key to keep the show fresh is to not have the same team present over and over and over, just to keep the variety there, but you're right. You can't push somebody into a corner. They'll
right.
go away. So that's understood. I don't think we put that much pressure on. I mean, one guy said no here this evening, but
Well, and I think I want to read something that Bob said. I think that one of the challenges is there's kind of this thought process saying if you're building a model, take a bunch of pictures of the model while you're building it and then do a build presentation. And that ends up looking like an hour of talking. I think, it'd be interesting to ask folks, if we did something that was kind of a quick tips, it's 5 minutes. It's that one thing you figured out that's really cool to do. It might be much more interesting to come and talk about that. Well, you don't have to talk for 15 minutes or an hour all you need to do is talk about 5 minutes. I mean, it's an interesting question. And when Tom puts out the questionnaire, think about this between now and then. I mean, there's some modeling technique, something you do that, hey, you could talk about for 5 minutes. Because I think sometimes, like I know this, I'm sure this is true when I do a build or when other people do a build, there's an hour of talking, and in it, there's only 3 minutes of stuff that's really interesting to some people. And if we could kind of find those 3 minutes and put a bunch of those together, I think that would be really interesting for folks. So think about it, would you be willing to do a 5-minute, tips and techniques kind of thing, not a build along, not a big thing, but something short. Anyway, enough said.
Yeah, that actually goes right into one of the things that I actually somebody had made a comment on Facebook on one of my posts about weathering, and they said, "Well, why don't you do a quick tip on that?" And I've been trying to. It's been kind of marinating in my head is exactly how to do it, and I think that's exactly what you're talking about is just a quick weathering technique that you could use on trucks, or one that you can use on roofing or like box cars, things along those lines.
Yeah,
Hey, any of you guys who have been around since when Jim was running the show, he used to have a segment like that.
Yeah, well, we can reintroduce a quick tips. That would be an interesting way to get further participation. Why don't we've got basically a full show this evening, and I made room for this thing. And we're going to pick up on this again next week. We're going to start the show the same way and just continue. Maybe I'll allow a little more time. But in fairness to everyone that prepared a presentation, we should start the official program. But I picked up, and I'll just do a quick summary. Scenery and weathering segments. We haven't did a lot of scenery. There was an opinion that fewer segments, longer segments. I'm not sure about that one. I like it fast hitting, which is what a quick tips were. Maybe there's room for both. And like I say, the quick tips was probably the big takeaway tonight. That would be something that would be interesting and drive participation. Well, thank everybody that participated in this little discussion. And if I put anybody on the spot, that was the idea. And we're going to start with our new track scholarship video, and then we're going to go to the first presentation. So if we could have that.
Are you a model railroader going to college in academic year 2025-26? If you are pursuing a STEAM degree, apply for the New Tracks Modeling Mentoring Scholarship. For the 2025-26 academic year, 3 $2,000 scholarships will be available. You can apply online at the QR code shown or on the New Tracks Modeling website. Model railroaders can support the New Tracks Modeling Mentoring Scholarship, the only national scholarships for model railroaders from a nonprofit organization. Donate online on Zephy. All donations are tax deductible.
I'm not sure if I've seen Bob Davidson on the program. I don't think so. Just a quick soundbite on this scholarship program. I asked everyone last week if they could make a $10 or $20 contribution. If you were on the beginning of the show, we get as high as almost 800 views on our total show, and the low is 200. If you just do the math, if everybody did a $10 or $20 donation that watches the show on our scholarship, you would fund easily one scholarship. We're going to give out 3 scholarships very shortly at $2,000 apiece. And this will be our 3rd year in a row. And the more donations we have, the more scholarships, so the larger the scholarship could be. Anyway, so next up, we have a longtime listener.
Tom?
Yes.
So going back to the scholarships, has there been any follow-up? I mean, when the first scholarships went out, Jim had the scholarship winner on a couple of segments. I haven't heard anything on past attendees. Are they still in school? Did we ever get a thank you or anything from those people?
We got a thank you, and we featured a couple of them on the show after we awarded the scholarship. So we have not awarded the scholarship for this year.
Well, I mean, like after a year, I mean, yeah, when they get it, they get the check, they send a thank you, but is there any follow-up to see what they've been doing with their life?
We could definitely make that we could definitely investigate that, but first up, we'll award the scholarships. Then maybe we'll have a show just on the scholarships. I'll try to put that together. That's a good idea. Yep. Fair enough?
Yep.
Okay, terrific. Okay, so next up, we've got Doc Lovelace, who's a longtime viewer of the show, and I coerced him into doing a presentation. And I think you're going to really, really like this presentation. It's it's regarding building the Hellgate Bridge in N scale on a massive scale. So Phil, if you could highlight Doc and run his presentation, that'd be wonderful. Welcome to the presentation part of our show, Doc.
How are you guys tonight? Yeah, just first of all, before we get started, I wanted to say that this is absolutely terrifying, but I'm honored that you asked me to do it. And I'm also very proud to be a part of the scholarship program. I think it's an absolutely wonderful thing that we're doing. And so I'll do anything you ask, brother. But okay, so basically I am, as you see here, building the Hell's Gate Bridge, or attempting to, in 1/160 scale. So whenever you're ready, we can go to the first one. All right, so I am new to the hobby. Well, relatively new. I started around the tail end of 2022 and started building, I guess, dioramas, and just each one got bigger and bigger and bigger. I tried to build them all, like I said, dioramas, but I tried to also build them modularly. The picture on the bottom there, those are actually two different modules that I created, and I did them in almost a tongue and groove kind of design, where the sidewalk on the right side will overlap just slightly onto the street so that they will blend together seamlessly. And that's exactly what I'm gonna have to do with this particular project, because it's just too big, first of all, to fit in here, to be honest. And I also want it to be able to be transported and dismantled and stored. Yeah, we're gonna see how that goes. You can go to the next one. Okay, so the Hell's Gate Bridge, it's a 117-foot main span through arch bridge. It was built in 1916. It hosts 2 tracks for the Amtrak's Northeast Corridor right now, and it also has 1 track dedicated to CSX for freight. It was the first of its kind when it was built in New York, and it was the longest steel arch bridge at the time. They built it very quickly and very efficiently, and from what I understand, it requires almost zero maintenance to this day. And it also inspired the Sydney the Sydney Harbor Bridge in Sydney, Australia. If you guys have seen that, you'll notice that it's very similar looking, and this is where it got its inspiration, is this bridge right here. It's called the Hell's Gate because the water underneath there is very turbulent. It's where the East River leads into the Long Island Sound. There's high rocks underneath the water right there. Very, very turbulent water, as I said. Back before this bridge was built, they basically transported ferries to get to and from Randall's Island to Queens and then on to Manhattan. Many, many ships were lost. many people were lost, much car lost. So when this bridge was built, it was a huge, huge saver for the city in many aspects. Next, please. All right, so this is a view of the right-hand picture is a view if you're looking southeast southeast basically into Queens. So this is the neighborhood I'm going to model. This is the lead-in to the bridge, and that's the neighborhood of Queens as well as, or a neighborhood of Astoria, Queens, I should say, as well as the Astoria Park down at the bottom left-hand corner of that picture. The picture on the left shows the RFK bridge on the left, and the Hell's Gate is the one to the right. The RFK is dedicated to bicycles and automobiles, and the Hell's Gate was once thought that they were going to transport automobiles on there, but it never happened. But this gives me a perfect way to model an immense, congested urban setting, wonderful cityscape, a park, a bridge, and a river all in one thing. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that? But it's going to be big, but it's going to be fun, I'll tell you that. And it gives me the opportunity to expand in any direction. So I chose N-scale basically because my hands and eyes still work at my age. That could change, I'll tell you that much. But right now, I love the fact that I can build massive, massive things and still retain pretty much a really good amount of detail. When this thing is done, the 117 feet of main span will translate down in N-scale to a little bit over 8 feet just for the bridge. The lead-ins will be around 8 or 9 feet themselves, and then the surrounding area, how deep that gets, like I said, it's going to be built modular, so it'll just expand and expand and expand. Next. So I did what everybody my age would do when you start something and you have no idea what the hell's going on. I went to YouTube University and started looking at every bridge schematic, every topographical map, every picture, every video, every bit of drone footage I could find on this bridge and the surrounding area of Astoria and even Randall's Island. And once I got a pretty good grasp of the size and what I was going to need, that's when I started going to work trying to figure out exactly how I was going to do this. So next slide. So I wanted to say something really quick here. This is not the first time that the Hell's Gate's been modeled, actually. A major manufacturer, you might know, Lionel, actually created this back in 1928 in O gauge and 1/48 scale. They were very proud actually to offer this really, at the time, iconic bridge that most people had never heard of. The ironic thing about it is that it's only 2 feet long in O scale, well, just a little over 2 feet long. I found that, I know compression has to happen. But I don't know. The one that is actually being built for a gentleman in Arkansas is well over 20 prototypically. But however, they did build this, and it's a very nice representation of the bridge. When it came out, believe it or not, it was $16.50, and it was by far their most expensive bridge at the time. That would translate today to about $340. And that would have been a little bit less than what mine costs now, given inflation. So next slide. So as I was browsing on eBay and everything else you can imagine, trying to find parts and railings and anything I could find, I ran across a particular man who sold mainly bridges, and he designed them MDF laser cut, and I was just blown away when I ran across the fact that he had already built a Hell's Gate bridge. He had one client that specifically wanted it a year or two back, and he retained the files on it. So I basically almost dropped my phone when I was at work, started shouting, terrified my coworkers, but I was very excited. It's a wonderful representation of the bridge. I'm going to use it basically as a skeleton. I'm going to add the makeup. I'm going to add the hair. I'm going to, you know, fix up her nails really nicely. I'm going to dress it up quite a bit, but it is a wonderful, wonderful start for the project. And more than importantly than anything to me, it's prototypically accurate. And I spent about 3 weeks corresponding with him on the phone to fix little tidbits here and there that I had measured, knew weren't quite there. And we got it. We got it pretty dead on right now. All right, next. So this is what it looked like when it came. After I unboxed, I don't know, probably 300 parts. And they're basically, a lot of them are still sitting there right now because I have to do each step as, you know, in a sequential order. And I'm kind of standing back a little bit on some of them just in case I want to wire it, add lighting, things like that. I need to figure out exactly logistically how I'm going to do that. So I'm kind of dry fitting stages as I go. The picture on the right, there are actually 3 little archway cutouts that are prototypical, but they did not come with his kit. He did not add those. So I got out my Dremel and added those, and we'll be adding little details like that as well in the MDF, things that are not added but reduced. I'm also going to do my best to do those as well. So when this guy sent me this, the amount of time and iteration and trial and error that he saved me is unbelievable. And there's no telling how much money he saved me. So I was very, very lucky to run across this. Next slide, please. So the gentleman that did it, I know he's got an odd last name. It's Szilagyi, Carl Szilagyi. He goes by Poster Zero. You can find him on many platforms. He's a native New Yorker, still lives in the Bronx, and that's also close to where his studio is as well. And he commutes back and forth daily too across the RFK Bridge and has a perfect view of the Hell's Gate Bridge. He has pretty much mastered, in my opinion, the art of laser cutting in MDF and various other materials, and his CAD work is unmatched as well. Like I said, he was born in New York and was educated in New York as well, high school up to college. Very, very, very interesting young man. Next. So these are just some examples of things that he did other than bridges. This is a viaduct. So if anybody's in the market for, I don't know, 47 feet of viaduct with brickwork, hit him up. He'll be happy to do it. He also does structures, buildings, tunnel portals. He's done helices. He's done stations that would blow your mind. And he does not work only in scale. He will work in O scale. He has even done walkover bridges and all kinds of things like that in Z scale, to the point that he was actually featured in Z Scale magazine, which you will see a little bit later. Next slide. All right, so this is that article I was telling you about. And in the future, he is going to very soon, very quickly start integrating 3D printing to his arsenal. So that way, he and I had a discussion about, you know, what if you added those extra little details, you know, those really rivet counter details. And he said, well, I probably could do that. And I said, you could have one like you sold me. It's basically a skeleton, a starter set. Or you could have one twice the money, includes everything. And he's going to be getting into that. He's also going to start developing mechanical lift bridges that are operational. He plans to build his own shelf layout in his studio. And he's going to manufacture all of the buildings by his own designs as well. No kits, nothing like that. He's going to design the entire thing. So there's no reason to ever, be afraid if you want to create something massive. If you've got something in mind, it doesn't matter if it's 40 feet long, he will build it for you. There's people out here that will help you, and he's the one to look for. I'll tell you that. Next. So this is one picture. This has since been dismantled because it I almost threw up when I looked at it. But this is the bottom of one of the decks. That's one of the lead-in decks that you saw going over the park and going over Astoria, Queens. This is what the underside of the deck looks like. There's 8 girders that go across, as well as the lattice work that goes down. It's almost exactly like this, except that I didn't like the spacing on this. I thought the spacing was off by fractions of a millimeter, and I have now since, for the 4th time, torn this down and rebuilt it. But we are getting there. I've got a pretty good process now that I know will fix the problem. Next. And I'm sure you're wondering how the heck are you going to model the East River? Well, I've done resin pours before, but I think on this scale, it would weigh so much it might go through my floor. So I'm not going to be doing a resin pour on this. On the left picture is the water that I created. On the right is the East River I'm trying to replicate. I use the old school toilet paper method to pull this off. About 6 layers of toilet paper with diluted white glue and paint. And the only step that I did not take on this particular one is add a clear gloss medium on top, which will actually add a little bit more depth and a little bit more shininess to it. I almost like it the way it looks, but I think it would look better with that medium on top. And it's also going to be very good because I'm going to add boats in this river scene. So this will be a very easy way to add the proper ripples and water disturbance behind those. Next. So again, if you guys need any information on this guy at all, his phone number, his email, he's well aware that I'm doing this presentation tonight, and I told him that there's a possibility that you might be getting some emails or phone calls, and he was very pleased and happy to hear that. This guy can build anything that you need. If it is just too big, too odd, whatever it is, this guy can pull it off in probably less than a month and have it at your door, perfectly built to your standards. He's the bridge builder of the Bronx, as Tom and I have started to coin the phrase. So next, I think is the last slide. It's going to be a tradition now. Every time I do a presentation, I get to end it with a picture of my lovely Ophelia. That is my dog. She's my best friend and also my helper on this massive journey. So thank you guys very much. If you have any questions, I'm here.
I just want to say, Doc, you hit it out of the park. You might have been nervous in the beginning, but you're a pro.
Well, thank you.
If everybody could clap for him, I would appreciate it.
Doc, this is Father Ron.
Hey, hello, Father.
You were talking about the weight of resin water. Mm-hmm. Have you ever investigated Boomer Diorama?
Oh yeah, I watch every video he's put out.
His water is just paint.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's spectacular too. You're talking about over the car ferry or the rolling stock ferry. Yeah, it's phenomenal. I'm going to try a couple of different methods. Weight is one issue, but it's not the only issue. But I'm still working on that. I'm still very much in the beginning phases of this. So I'll try that as well. I'm gonna try 3 or 4 different things. Resin is just not going to be it. I'll say that much. I know what it's not going to be, but
I think an 80-inch TV with that video program that's the harbor with the moving boats.
Yeah,
would be ideal.
God, I would need what is 4 feet by 3 feet, 4 feet by 3.5 feet translate to a television?
That would be 100-inch would work.
Wonder if you could do it with a projector, though. I wonder if that application would still work with a projector.
Yeah, you'd have to have a distance between your bottom and top. That would be neat to have a 100-inch TV. That only costs about $3,500.
Yeah,
the vehicle sense this thing underneath them, so it only works with a TV, not a projector. Because projector, they'd be on top of the screen. But
you might could backlight it. or project it from the bottom.
But it's yeah, you could, but you can buy a 70-inch, 75-inch TV for not that much now.
But then we're back into the same amount of weight that resin's going to cause.
That's
know?
true.
But it moves then, which is.
I know. Believe me, I showed you guys that video. I would love to do that, but
oh yeah, no, exactly.
It's got to be modular, and I'm trying to. I don't know. Like I said, we're all still in the iteration phase of this, so who knows? Could be a possibility. I definitely would love that, but.
Doc, it's Pat here.
Hello.
Amazing job on that. Amazing.
Thank you. I haven't really done much yet, but give me a couple more months. You'll see some. You'll see some
on
action.
the right track, believe me.
Thank you.
I think it's a very ambitious project. It's so it's going to be so dramatic, simply from the impact of the size and the detail. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I think the most fun I'm going to have is when I get into the structures and the urban, because it's not all residential, but I would say it's 70-30 residential to businesses in that particular area. And I think that's going to be fun, just to have so many little hidden scenes, like the little Where's Waldo scenes, all little things going on that you might not ever see, the same thing twice. That's what I'm going to try to do, because it's like you said, it's going to be massive.
Yeah.
Massive. And like I said, it gives you the opportunity to expand in any direction you go. You can just add on to it. Just keep adding on, There's no shortage of stuff you're going to run out to model in that part of New York. Everywhere you go, there's 13 miles of something in every direction, so.
You're on the right track.
Doc, Steve Sherrill.
What's up, buddy?
I love your enthusiasm. It's really wonderful to see a young new modeler with that enthusiasm.
Thank you.
And the fact that you did all the research and the background for the model that you're doing, that's exceptional. That's exceptional. And
yeah, when I first did it, I did not know that I was going to come, run across Carl. I honestly thought I was going to have to build this thing from scratch. So well, I know more about the infrastructure of New York City now than I need to. I'll tell you that. But
well, you're just, I love your enthusiasm. It's great.
Thank you.
Great. Nice job.
Thank you, Steve.
Any other questions for Doc while we have him on live?
Well, I couldn't have done it without you guys, so thank you guys.
You have become an inspiration. Thank you very much for the presentation this evening, and we look forward to progress on your bridge and future presentations. So next up, we've got Bill Stimson on News and Views N Scale, another N Scale presentation. Before we do that, we've had a little plug on the new tracks, MyBuild already, but nevertheless, it's important that we promote that.
Don't miss the monthly New Tracks Modeling MyBuild event. MyBuild is where the modelers of New Tracks show what they have been building. See amazing modeling with some MyBuilds featuring specific topics for modeling. If you would like to have your models included in the MyBuild, please email your modeling photos to chriscourse@railrunner130@hotmail.com. If you are a first-time MyBuild participant, please include a photo of yourself.
And Chris, if you could be brief, but tell us what's going on next. We're doing a survey and we need more participants, correct?
Yep, exactly. Phil, if you could show the slide, please. All right. The upcoming MyBuild, the next one is June 25th, and it is a challenge show, which is water is the theme. Waterfronts, boats, bridges, whatever you can do to kind of fit in, somehow relate it to water. That would be hugely appreciated. Please send me your photos to railrunner130@hotmail.com. Get those to me by June 21st, please, so that way we can get them all compiled and in a slideshow in a hopefully in an organized manner. We also have let's see, July 23rd will be a free-for-all show, and then based on the results of the survey, then we'll figure out what we're doing from that point on. But we have August 27th and September 24th. So Phil, if you could show the that next slide. There we go. All right, the survey, please participate. We've only had 7 people participate in the survey so far, and the more data we can gather, the better off we'll be, and the better product we can provide for you guys. So if you have a phone, scan the QR code, please. If not, you should be able to use that URL, or I think I had actually put it in the chat earlier. I'll copy it again, and then I will put it in the, there we go. There it is. Phil just put the tiny URL in there. So all you've got to do is click on that and it will take you to your survey. And I know to ask you for your email. That's only so we can track. You're not going to get a bunch of spam email from us on that. So anyway, that's what I had for tonight. So I'll turn it back over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Chris. And again, support MyBuild, one of our most popular segments. Appreciate everything you do for the show. Well, next up, another N-scale presentation, and this is from Bill Stimson, and it happens to be a Conowingo model in N-scale, the Gray Street house, correct?
That's correct.
It's all yours, Bill.
Chris Corse's first N-scale model that he's produced. So let me see if that worked. What? Oh, Bill,
nope, no, he's you've got the Bill's doing his own. Phil.
Too many Bills, I guess.
Yeah, sorry. There's 2 Bills tonight.
There we go.
There you go.
All right, I got it. All right, that's there. Okay. So I happened to meet Chris, flew down to Phoenix for a convention, and I happened to meet him, and I talked him into giving me an early version of his N-scale build kit. So I thought, here's an opportunity for everybody to see how good Chris's kits are and to promote some N-scale small manufacturers. So this is what you get with the kit. There's a laser cut piece of 1/32, I think it's basswood, some tissue windows and doors, a chimney, a 3D printed base, some stuff for curtains, roof cardboard, and some tar paper stuff. So the first step in building this kit is to brace the walls. I decided to do it while they were still attached in the complete piece, because Chris talked about, in his instructions, talked about using dry brushing to put a stain on the front. I decided I was going to use the old Hunterline driftwood stain as the undercoat. So I wanted to make sure I had plenty of support, because 1/32 inch stuff, when subjected to liquid, tends to warp. So this is the bracing that Chris suggested. I added some more, as you can see, especially on the roof pieces. I wanted to have a little bit of support for that cardboard as I attached it to these walls for the roof. Then I stained it with the Hunterline stain on that side and painted the back flat black, because I don't intend to put an interior into this, and I don't want any light sneaking through if I decide to put an LED underneath it, which is very possible when I put it on the layout. And next I painted the walls whitewash, and the windows and trim with avocado, which is a nice green. And you can see that by having the stain underneath, the white isn't stark white. It has looks a little bit like it's been weathered, not a lot. It looks like a fairly new house, but it's been exposed to the weather a little. And now you can see a little better the corner posts are now glued on, the little green there. And using some 1, 2, 3 blocks, I assembled the building and made sure it was square. You can see the 3D base there. So if anybody's curious, I just measured this building because I didn't think about it before, but this building is about a 2-inch cube. It's a little bit taller and a little bit narrower than 2 inches, but the width is from front to back is pretty close to 2 inches. So it's a very small building, if you can see, but that's it. And if you look in the picture of me, that's how big this thing is. It's, as Doc said, you got to have some pretty good eyes and some pretty steady hands when building these things. I found these window shades, and I don't remember who the manufacturer was, but I've still got a few sheets of it. So this is what I glued on the back of the windows instead of the looks like manila folder material that Chris included in the kit to make blinds. And there you can see them with the windows and doors. And I want to say, Chris's laser cutting, those window and door openings were dead on. I did not have to file a thing, which is unusual for a wood kit. I usually have to file the window openings a little bit or the windows themselves a little bit to get them to fit. And I use Titebond to do all the wood to wood gluing. And then the next thing I did was I used a makeup sponge and dabbed some various colors of gray on his black tar paper. And that helped to make it a little less, look a little like it's weathered. I also, you can sort of see the 3D printed stonework on his base. Those are various colors of gray and brown, just dabbed on with a really small brush to highlight various ones of the stones. There's the tar paper now glued onto the cardboard. And when I do cardboard and paper to one another, I used Elmer's glue. And I painted that same white on the underside of the roof so that when I glue it on, I don't now have to go paint that underneath. And then now the roof is glued in place. And then the building is now glued to the base. And he left this portion here to glue first the front of the porch, which is this piece here, if you can see my cursor, and the two sides, and then some strip wood cut to form the porch. And there's the porch formed of individually cut strip wood. And the stairs that were added here on the side. The porch roof is added on, and some 1/32 by 1/32 strip wood for the porch roof and the railings. And there's the chimney is now attached. Everything is pretty much done. And here you are. This is Chris's kit, and it looks wonderful. It was a real fun build, real quick build, but a fun build. No filing needed for the windows and doors, which helps a whole bunch. I managed not to quite get this thing centered on the base, and that makes the porch roof look a little long, but it's fine. I can see me buying 2 or 3 more of these and building a street scene with these kits. So, questions, comments?
You did a really nice job on that. That's a very attractive kit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he makes it in several scales. Isn't that right, Chris?
Yeah, it's an N, HO, and O scale now. In fact, I gave away a couple of them at the narrow gauge meet in Harrisburg last year. But in any scale, it all comes out it's a nice, pretty versatile building that you can put just about anywhere.
Yeah.
You
I
did a
can
real
see a whole street of these without any
Yeah.
difficulty.
Be like company houses, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Bill, I was very impressed with the stonework. I can't imagine doing that. I have a hard time doing that no scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna
we
say,
do.
because when I did it, I just slapped a coat of paint on it and then just threw some weathering on it. It was like, good enough.
Yeah. Well, the simple way is take like 3 or 4 different grays and a real small brush. And, I have a
Just dabble on
I
there.
have a light here that has also a magnifier on it. And I just stick that under there and dab it on it. I mean, with stonework, if you miss a little bit, it still looks like stonework.
No, it looked great. That looks really nice. And everybody has to keep in mind that's N scale. We're so
Yeah.
used to seeing O scale on the show. We're 2 inches
Like I
by
said, 2 inches tall by 2 inches wide by 2 inches deep.
So when you're
It's not
looking
very
at it,
big.
when you're looking at it in real life and not under a microscope of a large monitor, I mean, see what I'm talking about? I mean, there's a lot of detail on there. So terrific job, and thank you for presenting this evening.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, now I'd like to feature the NewTrax Facebook video, and then we'll go to our next presenter.
Does it seem like eternity waiting for the next Wednesday night and a NewTrax event? Now there is hope. The NewTrax Modeling Facebook page gets you into the NewTrax community 24/7. Post, respond, and converse with over 1,200 avid model railroaders on Facebook. Show your modeling, ask questions, and help others. Join now. It is free and easy. Use the link or QR code to open the.
Well, cut that off a little quick. Next up, we have Bill Davis. He's going to do an O-scale build, the Berkshire Valley Tellhouse kit. And welcome to the show, Bill. I understand you were on in our glorious past, and welcome to NewTrax this evening.
Thank you. Yeah, I did a few things on the past shows and stuff. You're gonna do the pictures, right?
Yeah, we've got it for you. Phil will run it.
Okay, cool.
Say the
Yeah, go
message.
ahead.
Yep.
So the kit I'm building is the Tellhouse kit that Berkshire Valley puts out. Berkshire Valley makes some of the awesome kits. I mean, his laser work is spot on. His everything he does is spot on. It's a really cool little kit. Next slide. So this building was located in the town of Telluride, Colorado. It originated as a project inspired by the Library of Congress photo, which I've never been able to find. But apparently Richard from Berkshire Valley found it because he did this kit. Next picture. So this kit is available in O scale, S scale, and HO scale. That's a picture of the pilot model. Mine looks a little bit different from that one, and we'll talk about that as we progress. So this is not part of the kit. I make my own stain. I started off with a timberline scenery timber stain, but as it got down, I would just add paint, dirty brush washings from cleaning my brushes and stuff. So my stain always changes colors. And one thing I like about that is I'm a woodworker and I know how stains work on woods, and not all wood stains the same way. And so as you can see in this gondola I built here, that these boards all stained up with different stains depending how much color I put in each one of them. And so, but like I said, as my models progress, not everything has the same gray tone or brown tone or whatever. And it's just the method I use. Now, when I use a stain, it's usually a water-based stain. And one of the issues you run into when you use a water-based stain is to have the wood warp if it's a wooden kit. So I have an artist easel and just a piece of square uh, plastic, which I made into like a square cutting board and a brick. And I'll stain the piece of wood, stick it between the brick, the plastic, and put the brick on top of it, let it sit for a couple days, and it'll dry flat. Next picture. So in this kit, he's all laser cut. The walls are actual wood, but the battens are more of a cardstock material. So they didn't stain exactly the same, but I kind of like the way it looked with the two of them together. So next slide. So these are all the four walls done up. Now you'll notice, I don't know if I can do this or not. Yes, I can. Okay. You notice here, like this board here and this board here and this one here. I cut a few boards out on it so that it could look like they replaced the battens over the years, or in this case, there's a missing batten and stuff to give kind of a weathering thing without being overly over the top weathering. There's a lot of things on models that people go way over top with the weathering. Also, you'll notice that in the windows, there's this green shade material, which is just simply a piece of green paper. And then there's an addition to this building. And so this part here would be the interior of that addition. So I painted it kind of a linen gray color, linen tan color, excuse me. And all the windows and doors are laser cut, and they are painted white. Now, there was no interior in this stairwell, but I somehow felt that it should have interior in it. So in my collection of stuff, I have a stair horse. So I cut a piece of stair horse here, made some platforms for top and bottom. And then when I put the door in place, I mounted it as open. We'll see more of this staircase later on. I also will added wiring down here, which doesn't show in this picture here for lighting, which we can talk about more of that in a little bit here. Next slide. So this is the exterior wall. This I used a craft paint called Territorial Tan, but the door here is just straight stain. You can see the difference in the coloration between the two. Next slide. So now here's all four walls and the addition glued in place and stuff. So now I'm ready to assemble the actual building. Okay, so this is the building assembled. I added the lighting here and the roofing material. They had cardstock for the sub-base roofing, and they can't remember what he had for roofing material, but I had a bunch of these old sheets back in the day when we used to put our pictures in notebooks, and we glue this black paper material, which that looks like just like tar paper, especially the one side is kind of rough and the other side is kind of smooth. So if you use the rough side up and you paint and stain it and do a little, not paint and stain it, but I mean, if you do a weathering on it, I used brown and gray chalk to weather it and then cut it into 3-foot wide strips, added a few patches, and we got a roof. The front little porch there is also just straight stain on that, but it was only the gray color, not with the brown mixture. The door had a bright gray and brown mixture put on it. The other one just had a straight gray mixture. So this is the other two walls of the kit, and you can see that there was a area underneath here, I guess was a storage area. So they had like just a wall coming, wall, so I tar papered that and stuff. The chimney is all laser cut also. Like I said, the laser work is amazing on this kit. Next slide. So my friend Jim Murphy is a master of Arduinos and lighting and just about any kind of animation type of thing. And so I sent it over to his house and he made the lights work in it. So there's a porch light and a front and back, and the stairwell is lit up, and you'll see more of that stairwell in just a second here. Next slide. Okay, I think we've reversed it. That's okay. So the kit didn't come with a porch. So I decided it needed something that was kind of bland. Go back one. You see how there's this kind of bland up front here. So go ahead, back ahead again now. So I felt it needed something to detail that area or to just make it look a little more, I don't know, exciting out front. And so I built this porch. I just used 2x10s for the joists here, and the header is a 4x8 with 4x4 posts and Grant line corner pieces here. And then I laid 2x12s across the top and covered it with tar paper. Now this is without lighting, and this is after Jim put lighting in it. Next slide. Now this is the stairwell area. This wasn't part of the kit. I used to live in Southern California before I moved east after I retired, and I spent a lot of time in the desert and old ghost towns and mine camps and stuff like this. And that's the way the stairs looked, rickety and really bad. And so I was kind of glad that that one came out looking that way and stuff. And you can see the light really shines on it and really brightens it up. Next slide. So I wanted this thing to have the look of somebody living there. And so I decided to add some things there. So I put a chair here. I cut some twigs from my yard into some firewood with an axe nearby there. And this guy has been living in my box of people for way more years than I want to remember. And so I decided I finally found a place for him to be. So I put him on the front porch. And on the stairs here, you see there's some cats, and we'll talk a little bit more of the cats in just a second here, but there's some cats here on the stairs. I wanted some like, now this is, I think this is the final slide. This is just showing it with the lights lit and all the things there. The black cat sitting there by the door is my own personal cat who insisted to be part of the project. And we live with her, I should say, and we're her servants. Any questions?
The lights, Bill, those are LEDs?
Those are all LEDs, yes.
And
yeah. And Jim has a way of wiring them all up there with the resistors and stuff like this, which is inside the house. As you can see one of the wires right there. I should have hid that a little better, but anyway, type of thing. But yeah, they're all LEDs and they're all on one circuit and they all light at one time. And so it'd be kind of fun if I could done with where only certain ones lit at certain times. But anyway.
It's a fine looking model you made there.
Thank you. Once again, I just want to do a little plug here for Berkshire Valley. In addition to structures, he has rolling stock, a lot of O scale, HO scale stuff. I don't think it's an N scale stuff going, but wagons, vehicles. I mean, you name it. Richard's been putting it out. He also has one of the most incredible layouts I think I've ever seen. And I've only seen it in pictures, unfortunately. Well, that's not true. I saw it in its very early stages in 2007 when I lived in Arkansas. But yeah, if you look at the latest Gazette and a past article in RMC, you'd see this as really a very incredible layout. I mean, we have 11-foot ceiling and he's got floor to ceiling scenery. Amazing.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is really neat about this kit, and it's something that I kind of learned a long time ago when I was doing some scratch building, is look at that front door. That front door is what makes that building. If you had just like a regular
Grant line door.
Yeah, if you had a regular like a Tichy door with a square window on it, that building would look completely different.
Exactly. So
and that's it's just those little details that make a huge difference.
I think the porch really added to the, I mean, that dramatically moved the model up in my view.
Yeah, and when I did the porch the first time, it just had just the post there, and I went, I got to do something with those posts. And I found in my parts bin that little corner detail from Grant, and typical of the 1880s, 1890s when this was probably built, they would have that on the porch and stuff. Any other questions, comments, whatever?
Did a fine job with that. That's excellent.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a very fun build.
Thank you for presenting this evening.
Sure. We'll do it again.
Terrific. We've got David Shultz up next, but before we have David on, we'd like to do the New Tracks live donation video.
Do you enjoy New Tracks modeling? You can help support New Tracks in many ways, but donating to support the show and other activities is really appreciated. This helps pay for the expenses of producing the show, including Zoom, website, and emailing costs. You can support New Tracks financially in 3 ways. First, you can make direct contributions through Patreon. With Patreon, you can make a single or monthly contribution to New Tracks. You can also contribute through YouTube by using super stickers and super chats to donate. Finally, when you watch a YouTube replay, letting the ads run will increase the payout to New Tracks. Thank you for supporting New Tracks modeling.
So next up in our final presentation this evening is David Shultz, kind enough to do another presentation for us. And we're coining Steve Sherrill's word, rescue modeling. So this presentation features old-time kits in O scale that he's enhanced to modern day standards. How's that?
That pretty much covers it, I guess. So yeah, tonight we're going to talk about bringing some old kits up to date. I was on a Zoom meeting here this week, and some guys were complaining that there wasn't enough modern stuff, and the modern stuff that was available was way too expensive. And I've always been a huge scratch builder, so if I love being challenged on stuff, and if I were a little more up on my technology, I'd be able to show you a picture of my CNW bi-level train that I had scratch built the bi-level cars. Running it on the club layout and also running it down in Chicago, and it turned a lot of heads. So people were pretty excited about that. But I always loved scratch building, and when I buy kits, you can I build them pretty much the way they built the kit. I don't care to modify them or anything else. I mean, I'll modify them if I want a little bit of different hand railings or bring them up into the 60s, over the 1930s, like replacing the brake valves with more modern brake valves. But otherwise, I build them pretty much the way they are. But my son, he likes to bring things up to date. I know when I started railroading back in the 80s and then into the 90s on the WC, we were using old Sioux-line boxcars, and we were using them for hauling wood chips. And we used those cars right up until about the 2000s. So, those old 1930s, 1940s cars can remain relevant in even more modern times, depending upon what kind of uses you're going to have. But anyway, we can start with the first picture, if you would, please. Here are some of those kits I was talking about. You can see the old price tag up there in the corner, but I gotta believe we paid around $5 or $10 a piece for these. In fact, in Chicago this year, I was looking at 4 kits, 2 air slides and 2 rail guns. And the guy had $10 a piece on them, and I was looking at them, and the guy said, "Are they worth $10?" And I said, "Well, yeah, to the right person, they're worth $10." He said, "Well, take all 4 of them for $10." Well, I've got enough kits to last me a lifetime, but for $2.50 a kit, I couldn't pass them up. But anyway, one of them you see there is a 40-foot door and a half boxcar, probably from the 1940s. And then the other, you've got a 40-foot steel boxcar. And like I say, some people look at this and say it's way too old for what I'm doing. But anyway, next photo, please. So my son models the Milwaukee Road, and the Milwaukee took a lot of their old 1930s boxcars and they made bunkhouses out of them. And they used those up until mid 70s. Well, he's modeling from 1969 through 1972 or so, and he decided that he needed some bunk cars for his section crews. So this is one of those door and a half boxcars that he modified. He put windows on the side, removed the sliding door, and put a regular door on there. Same old trucks that you would use on the old car, because they don't interchange them. So you didn't have to be compliant, as far as you could still have friction journals on the cars, as long as you're not going to interchange them, and you run them at slow speeds. And bunkhouses, they moved around very little, just to where the work was. And so this is one of the cars he has brought up to the 1970s. If you want to go to the next one. These are what these kits look like when you first buy them. Lots of parts, and you can follow the directions and build them just as they are, or you can do like my son's been doing with them. Next one. Here's one of those cars, same kind of deal, door and a half box car, but he's reduced it down to one door, put windows in each end. And this is another one of those bunk cars. This one, I believe, was the blacksmith car, but it traveled along with the bunk houses, and it might even be the kitchen car. I'm not sure. But this one, once again, used up until nearly 1980. So, you know, if you're doing 1970s, you can use these old kits, which you can buy for at any flea market for very little money, and put a little effort into them, and you can make some nice looking cars out of them. Next slide, please. Okay, here's what the car looks like originally when you build it. The door and a half box car. They're kind of out of order here, but anyway, you get the idea. This is what the car looks like from the kit. So next slide. Here is a AHM flat car. You can buy these things for nearly nothing. I think he gave $5 for this car, and modified the underframe with it. And here he's just got some lumber piled onto it, but still the car was quite relevant to the section crews up until nearly 1980. And some of the cars, I know that on the WC, we had a few maintenance away flat cars from 1938. They were old Southern Pacific cars, so all riveted and such. But they replaced them with roller bearing trucks, and we ran them on some of our hottest freights. So those, you know, 38-foot flat cars would race along at 60 miles an hour, no problem. But anyway, next slide. Long pause.
Yeah, there it is.
There we go. Now here's a car that my son is making into a wood chip car. The Milwaukee Road went through the trouble of changing out the doors. They built kind of a framework where the cardboard would be put over that, what they called coopering the doors. I think on the other side, the door was welded shut, and then the one end, they removed the door, and then they would put in the wood framing with the cardboard, and then load it with wood chips from the top. And then apparently they'd tear out the side door there and unload it through the side. But once again, another old time boxcar being brought up into the 1970s, 1980s. And the next slide. Here's a gondola that he cut all the sides out. It was kind of a peekaboo gon. The Milwaukee Road put them in the shops, and they cut out all the panels, left all the bracing in there. And that way they could see what was in the car. Ties. The Milwaukee Road used these for hauling ties and rail to different sites. So the sectionman could see through the car to see what was in the car. But once again, old time car brought up to the up into the more modern age, still relevant to the railroad at that time. Next one. Now here's one that's kind of interesting. Once again, it's another one of the AHM flat cars that you can get for nearly nothing. Like I said, I think he's paying like $5 a piece for them, although they are starting to get kind of hard to find. But he had these racks 3D printed. A friend of his does some 3D printing. He mounted those on the flat car, and the Milwaukee Road used these cars for hauling logs from local areas to, I think these went to St. Regis. And but once again, you know, the old car couldn't be interchanged anymore, probably past its 50-year lifespan. We could still run on the railroad itself. I'm not sure, he's still got friction journals on there, so the Milwaukee, being kind of broke that they were, probably didn't bother changing the trucks out if they didn't have to. And the next slide. And here's another old drop bottom gon, but the Milwaukee put sides on it, and they would haul sawdust in these. And I suppose they use the drop bottoms to unload the sawdust, but I don't know for a fact. But these cars, like, I remember seeing these in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Originally they were old Northern Pacific drop bottom gons, but they had modified them with some side, and they'd haul scrap metal in them. And so, you know, you can make old cars more relevant. This was another 3D print that he had designed and made. The first one kind of warped, but they redid it with a different type of resin, a little longer curing time. This one's been holding up quite well, so I think they got her figured out. anyway, on to the next one. All right, I included this picture, stole this off the internet. PS2 guns used to be everywhere, and you don't see them much anymore, except you still see them running around. They put some ballast doors on them, and they haul ballast with them. St. Cloud, Minnesota, the Great Northern Shops were famous for taking the old PS2s, cutting the openings in the roof, and then adding these ballast doors to the bottom. They painted them gray, and the BN would load rock in those and haul them all over their system for ballast. And you can see these are what they call jack in the box. They put roller bearings in them, and according to the FRE, you had to remove the door to show that they had roller bearings. That was the only way they could still run them long distance. But here's one car, and then the last slide is of an old ore car, and same story. You know, the ore cars, as the ore ran out, they didn't have, they scrapped a lot of them, but a few of them they brought in, and they put ballast doors on them. I remember using cars like this on the Minnesota Valley for quite a few years. I think they had a group of 10 old Masabi ore cars that had the ballast doors on them, and we hauled rock around those. I know here in Duluth, one of the steam plant, they got coal in their the steam plant. They burned coal to make steam, and the coal would come in old ore cars because their track was too short to handle standard coal cars. So they would load the cars at Midwest Energy in the ore cars, and they'd bring 3 of those over, 3 or 4, and would shove them in their little short spur track, and they could unload the 4 cars in there. But anyway, that pretty much covers what I had for photographs and such. And but anyway, if you want to do a little bit of work, I'm thinking somebody needs to 3D print those ballast doors, and then it'd be kind of interesting to take some of the old PS2s I have. I know we had a war amongst the 4 or 5 of us O-scalers at one time, trying to see who could collect the most PS2s, but I lost that battle. I gave up at about 16. So
I think there were some very fine models in there, and I think you're proving the point where if you like the scratch build and you want to get a jump start, buy one of these old kits, tune it up, bring it up to speed, and you have a unique, one-of-a-kind model. And as Steve Sherrill's term, rescue modeling.
Yep.
You're taking these kits from the 40s to the 80s or 90s and giving them a second life. And they hold up beautifully. Some of them just outstanding looking,
Yeah. My son's bunk cars, that just blew me away when he built those. He brought those over, and the door and a half box car, and they don't look anything like it anymore. They look like something the Milwaukee Road modified into a bunk car and would haul those around on the railroad for the section to sleep in.
Well, that red one that you did, that was the either you weren't sure if it was a kitchen car or a blacksmith's car. That was, that is a gorgeous model.
Yeah, it turned out really well.
It is really attractive.
And they used those up until 1980s. I don't remember exactly when, but the FRA finally put an end to the bunkhouses and such. So, so then the railroads had to start putting their crews up in hotels.
Dave, I have a tip for you.
Yeah.
Anytime you see a label on the end of a car that has a zip code started in 1963. So you know that car was made after 1963.
Oh, okay.
That's a good tip.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Thank you for presenting this evening, and excellent presentation, and appreciate it.
You're most welcome.
Well, we're at the end of the show. We're going to have the show closing and the Caboose. But before we do, I'd like to give you a little preview of the upcoming New Tracks Modeler magazine that I'm doing in my spare time. The goal is to have this out by June 1st, or Jim Kello will have my hide. This is the cover. That's Len Eberwine's Coal Tower, featured on my layout. We've got a lot of our presenters in here doing articles. Jim Kello himself, a new fella, Nicholas, I can't pronounce it, Callias, Phil, our producer, and Earl, our other producer. This is a dramatic difference from our newsletter. It's a magazine format. It'll be available online. It'll page out. We have a program that pages out like a magazine. We've got a little thing on New Tracks Mentoring Scholarship. That's Penn State there. Jim Kello has a featured article on augmented reality. We're going to feature a segment on that at some point, but it's really a neat concept. We want to keep this New Tracks leading edge, and we want to appeal to the youth, and augmented reality is one thing that gets everybody's attention, but particularly the youth. This is a depot I did about 10 years ago, featuring that as an article. These are advertisements. This is Phil's Agnew Station presentation he did about a month ago. This is our sponsor of the show, the Garfield Substation. This is a new kit coming out. It's maybe out now, but it's certainly going to be released by the summer of 2025. If you're an O-scaler and you have room for this kit, it's a beautiful kit. This is Earl Hackett, one of our producers. This is a presentation he did. Just a little word on writing articles. If you do a presentation on New Tracks Live and you include text descriptions, like Doc's presentation, for example, had a lot of text through it, I can take that presentation, dump it into an AI engine like ChatGPT, and I get the basis of an article. That's what I've done here. I have to go back and edit it, but it surely gives you a real jump start and gives us material for the magazine. So if you do a New Tracks live presentation, you do a PowerPoint, put some captions on the photos, and ChatGPT can capture that text and expand it into an article like this. There's another ad, and this is all in process. Hopefully this will all be done in the next 5 days, but these are articles. Greg is not with us this evening, but this is his model. This is featured in one of our New Tracks MyBuild advertisements. That's a beautiful model he did there. Once a month, we get news from the East Broadtop Railroad. A fellow named Gene Tucker sends us a little update on what's going on at the EBT. That'll be a regular feature of the magazine. Send us some photographs. Any shows that are around, we have this upcoming narrow gauge show, June 13th, 14th, and the rest will be advertisements. But the magazine's coming along nicely. We will have more content, and in my opinion, a better looking magazine than the big four major magazines: Model Railroader, RMC, the NMRA magazine, and the Short Line Gazette. We have better layout, more content, more interesting content, and it's free. Free to all you need to do is subscribe.
So if you're already subscribed to getting the show link, you have to do a different subscription?
Nope, you should be all set.
Okay, cool.
Hey,
Bring it on.
Tom, let them know as well, the viewers, that it could also work in reverse as you did with me. I wrote an article and then you turn that into a presentation, basically almost overnight.
Yep.
So that can work like that as well.
Yeah. Doc wrote a rough draft, and we brought into the Chat GPT and a grammar program I have, and then I added my 2 cents, and we came up with between the two of us, a wonderful article, Doc and I, and then we converted that. I told Chat GPT, turn that into a PowerPoint. And I had to heavily go in there and fix the PowerPoint, but it just gives you, as an editor, and I seem to be wearing a lot of hats, gives me a real jump start on things. And anyone out there, by the way, that would like to be the editor of the new magazine, call me personally or email me or contact me. I can use assistance or help. I don't want to do everything. So that concludes this evening's show. We've had a new presenter with Doc, and we had another one with, returning presenter, Bill Davis, and I want to thank everybody else that presented this evening. We have a tradition on the show for the new viewers that we close the show with, see if you're on, yeah. Yeah, there he is. Sorry, I lost my screen for a moment. Father Ron, if you could close the show, we would appreciate it.
Master maker of the universe, our scale models imitate your creative spirit, and we learn the genius of your handiwork. Teach us to appreciate all you have made. Amen.
Thank you, Father Ron, who's a master model maker himself, and I'm sure we'll feature him later this year when he's ready with another model. Now we have a caboose that features a Lego train that goes around a pool, a swimming pool. At least that's what Phil told me, so here we go. Wasn't that neat? I saw the German ice train there and a couple other high-speed trains, and that thing was really moving along. Well, thank you again for the presenters for presenting, and we'll see you next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Have a good evening.
You all too.